one of the big voter confidence concerns right now, because I'm the elections chair, I get them all, right? Everybody emails me, everybody calls me, did you see this, did you see that? One of the really big voter confidence concerns right now is the concern about non-citizens voting. And honestly, we tell people, oh, non-citizens, they're not voting in Kansas. The God's honest truth is we don't really know because we haven't been doing that much to check. But when I started digging into it, I discovered that it actually doesn't say anywhere in statute or in our Constitution that you have to be a citizen to vote. The people who wrote our Constitution all those years ago, it never occurred to them that you had to say that, right? It was kind of obvious, citizens vote, non-citizens don't vote. So they didn't actually write it in the Constitution. Instead, what they wrote in the Constitution was you can't prevent a citizen from voting if they're 18, if they live in the district, without due process of the law, right? So if you become a felon, you lose your right to vote until you've completed your sentence, and then you can apply to get your voting rights back. But otherwise, the Constitution says you can't prevent a citizen from voting. So this year I sponsored, we had 46 co-sponsors for a bill to plug that hole, right? Let's just put it in the Constitution that only citizens can vote. It seemed pretty obvious. It was pretty overwhelming. It's passed the House. It's over in the Senate now. It requires a 2/3 vote of both houses, and then after the 2/3 vote, it'll go to the ballot in November 2026 for y'all to vote on. And you vote for it, and then it'll be in the Constitution. God willing, you'll vote for it. I may come back and give another pitch for that when we get closer. But okay, now you've got it in the Constitution. You didn't really fix anything. All you did was make it clear that only citizens can vote. How are you going to enforce that, right? Well, when I started digging more, I found out that there's not a lot of data sharing inside the government to scrub our voter rolls to make sure that there are no non-citizens on our voter rolls. A lot of people don't know this, but you can get a driver's license if you're not a citizen, right? You just have to show up at the DMV, prove who you are with a birth certificate from wherever or something, or a passport from whatever country you're from, and proof that you're in the country legally. And then they give, that could be my resident alien card saying that I've been in America for 10 years, or that could be the little paper you get when you show up from the country after you plugged into the CBP1 app to come into the country from Nicaragua or wherever, right? And so they have the data. The DMV, because when you show those documents, they scan those documents in, and they record all of that, and they know who's a citizen and who's not a citizen. And oh yeah, by the way, because of the National Voter Registration Act, every state's a motor voter state. So while you're at the DMV, they're going to ask you, do you want to vote? Or do you want to register to vote, right? And you're going to, you might be thinking, say, well, golly, of course, if they just took your evidence showing that you weren't a citizen, they're not going to ask you. I met a guy who's a legal resident of the United States from Australia, and they asked him if he wanted to register to vote after they had just taken all of his stuff. DMV workers, they get tired, they lose track of who they're talking to or whatever, and they make mistakes. He obviously said, I don't think I'm allowed to do that, but imagine somebody who's in the country who speaks English as a second language or barely speaks English. They might not understand the question they're being asked, and they might just say yes to everything they're asked. So there is it's not completely beyond the realm of possibility that some non-citizen might end up on the voter rolls. So let's go look, right? Let's look and see if the people that we know are non-citizens are on the voter rolls. Well, the Secretary of State's, this Secretary of State and previous Secretary of State have had the same idea. It's not like a novel, it's not like an outlandish idea, but the problem is they can't always get the DMV to cooperate, because it's work for the DMV to go make a list of these are the non-citizens and give it to the Secretary of State. So in the last 15 years, that's only actually happened 6 times in 15 years. 6 times. And it just happened in November, this last November, and when we were debating the bill on the floor, people, oh, this, they spent all this money looking for non-citizens and found one person. Well, Secretary of State's office found 80 people. Last time they checked the voter rolls, they found 80 people, and they have evidence that 20 of those people actually voted. Non-citizens voted in an election. Now, they're still investigating it. That number could go down. It could be that the person was a non-citizen when they got their driver's license, but since then they've been naturalized, but it could also be that they're non-citizens and they voted. So we have a bill. We passed it through the House. It's just been heard in the Senate committee. It's going to go to the floor that would quarterly require the DMV to provide this list. And then the Secretary of State's office would make sure that, check the list against the voter rolls. And if they find somebody that has the same name, obviously there's more than one John Smith in Kansas, they check the name, and they're also going to have the birth date, the address, the social security number, and if they have one, an alien registration number. So they're going to have all those things to check to try to make sure that it's the same person. And if it is the same person, they'll send the name to the county clerk, where that person lives, because they can't remove names from the voter rolls themselves. Only a county clerk can do that, because we have a bottom-up election system. So they will send that name to the election clerk, and then the election clerk will tell the voter, hey, I am removing you because we believe you're a non-citizen, and remove them from the voter rolls. Now, there's a ton of due process in it, because, mistakes happen. The guy can come in with proof they're a citizen, get put back in the voter rolls, or if all else fails and they forget, they don't see the notice that they're being removed and they go to vote and they're not, they say they're not in the voter rolls, they can vote a provisional ballot, and then they got another 2 weeks to go, so there's to go prove they're a citizen, and their vote will get counted. So there's a ton of due process in it, just so we make sure that we're not, kicking somebody off the voter rolls who should have the right to vote, because you don't want to do that.